Hey, welcome back to Stickboy's Lab. I'm Stickboy. Yep. So look at this mess. We've got stuff everywhere. This is going to be a crazy episode. So we're going to start out with a little video of tearing this thing down. I was out wheeling it one day and broke a bunch of parts, including the stock gearbox, and we're going to show a little bit of that. Also, I had ordered a new gearbox and motor, the single speed 370, a few weeks back with a set of new tires. So we're going to be doing the conversion to the new single speed transmission, and we'll just kind of see where this goes. Stay tuned for all kinds of excitement. So we've been out wheeling, and it's time for a Carnage Report. Here's what we've got going. I was out playing on the rock pile, and if you check in here, you can see that I'm missing part of my upper shock mount. I knew that was not a terribly good print. I had some under extrusion problems on it, but I decided to run it anyways to see if it would fit properly. And it did, and it worked really well, but it was just a little bit weak where the screw went through and it broke off. So instead of trying to glue this back on, because I know the other one will break off anyways, I'm going to probably pull this back up, do a slight redesign on it, and we'll go from there. The shocks work pretty good. There is a lot of this going on from torque when you're climbing hills. But we're not done with the Carnage Report yet. There's more to the Carnage Report. Here's the other part of the Carnage Report. Yeah. Oh wait. Oh wait, something is wrong here. Yeah. Going around. Not going around. So we've stripped something out in the transmission, and so we're gonna have to pull that apart and figure out what's wrong with that too. Here's a closer shot of the failed shock tower. I just didn't make those tubes large enough, and when I drilled through to put the bolt in, it just didn't have much left, and it broke off. So here we've got our little gearbox, and we're going to pull it apart and see what's going on. I'm still running plastic shafts on this, and they have not caused me any problems yet. My guess is that the motor got a little hot and melted something plastic in there, and it is either stripped out or slipping. I'm guessing stripped out. I believe all the gears are okay. Okay, so now it's my guess that this is spinning here, and I am right. That gear is spinning on the shaft, and I'm not quite sure how to fix that. I'm sure I'm not the first person that this has happened to. So I think what we'll do is we'll clean that up. We'll press this gear off of here. We'll clean it up a little bit, and we will try to glue it back somehow. There you can see the knurling under that gear, and there you can see the gear. It was just slipping on that knurling. So we'll come up with another solution for this, and we'll get back to you. So today I went to check the mail, and what should I see? It's something from Sesame Street. So obviously I figured it was cookies from the Cookie Monster, or maybe some garbage from Grover. But no, it was a set of new tires. These are the kit version tires, unlike the hard ready to runs that I had been on. And also the 370 single speed transmission from WPL. and some stickers. We'll open this bag up and see what all's in here. We have transmission case, drive shaft, and gears, the motor, and a small bag of hardware. There does not seem to be any instructions included here, but I'm going to take a guess and say that we can figure it out. So in this one we have 2 gears, the drive shaft cups, and the drive shafts. We'll have to see if these, I'm guessing that one of these drive shafts may be too long for this application from the look of things. But we'll see how that all works out. Here we have the shaft for the transmission output. So to start with, I'm just going to press these bearings into the housing. And one goes into this housing. I have not looked at any videos or instructionals as to how I should be putting this together. So we're just going to wing it and see how many mistakes I make along the way. We're pretty sure that goes like that though. We're also fairly certain that our motor sits in here like this. These plastic holes in the case seem to be just a little bit off of the holes in the planetary gear case, and I might need to take this apart and file those out just a little bit. So here I have the 2 screws in place holding the motor into the gearbox side. Next is to find and install one of these teeny tiny grub screws into this gear. I'm going to put just a touch of blue Loctite. That looks good. That ought to be good. So next up has got to be this gear and this other shaft. The big booger full. Well, that ain't gonna do. I put it together backwards. Take 2. And we'll see if that makes more sense. Ta-da! Victory is ours. Here's the part of the show where I reach over into the grease. Put a big old glob of grease in that case. And we'll do a little test fit. So here we have the transmission mocked up in the C24. We have some decisions to make. So I have some drive shafts here. These are the ones that came with the transmission. I have 2 of these. They're fairly long and they're probably not going to work for front or rear in this configuration. I also have another set of metal aftermarkets, which also are too short to work in this configuration. Also, we have a deal here where you probably can't see it, but I have a link hitting on the motor. So there's an extra set of holes here. There's an extra set of holes in the transmission, so it can be scooted forward, which is probably what we're going to do. But then the other question is do we want the motor sticking out the back or sticking forward? And I think in this situation, I'm going to have it sticking out the back so that it doesn't interfere with the electronics tray here. The other question is, do you mount it this way for high clearance, or do you flip it the other way for lower clearance and potentially slightly better driveline angles? Either way, it's better clearance than the stock transmission. But I think we'll try it in high clearance mode, and if that doesn't work, we will try something else. I'm going to grab my nippers, and you can see this is drilled here for another hole, but it's going to require that these are cut off. So we're just going to go ahead and pretend that we know what we're doing and cut that off and cut that off. Now we'll scoot this up to this hole and flex that into place. That should sit about right there, which the motor will clear the links okay in the back, and drive shafts will fit a little different. I'm also going to need to trim a little bit of my electronics tray right here so that the drive shaft will clear there. And I need to cut a little hole in there for clearance. So here I have my short aftermarket metal drive shaft hooked up to the axle. It looks like this is just like a perfect length for that. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my electronics tray. And my Sharpie is not Sharpieing. Something like that's going to have to be taken out of there. See if I can do this without melting down my X-Acto knife. Nice thing about cutting 3D print like this is it seals that edge back up. If you're slicing through the layers. We'll see if that'll pop out. So as you can see here, this drive shaft length is just not going to work. It is just way too short. And it's all flopped out. And even at full compression, it just kind of flops all over the place. So that's not a good option for us. We're going to have to try something else, and we're probably going to have to shorten one of those longer ones. So what I'm doing now is I'm pulling this rear end off. And I'm going to flip it because this is a counter-rotating gearbox. And if you don't flip one of the differentials, one of them will go forward and the other one will go backwards. Makes for a unique driving experience. Let's see if I can do this gracefully without losing too many parts. No, I can't. I have lost all the parts. We'll take this. So this drive shaft might work. It's getting a little far out on its travel. We'll see. We'll see if it's a problem. It also seems like it wants to rub up against the motor some. So this is not an ideal situation here. And it's possible I may have to resort to other things, such as, I don't know, not terribly impressed. But to be fair, these parts may not have been designed for a C24. So let's flip this thing end for end, and we'll see what kind of results we get then. That looks a little better. It still can hit the motor if things happen right, but it's not a racer. It'll be fine. Now, onto the front shaft. Now, the front shaft, we determined that the short ones are too short, and we've also determined that the long one is too long. So I'm going to have to shorten this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what length I actually need it, and I'm going to pull this pin out and re-drill the shaft and put another pin in. So here we're back to this drive shaft. As you can see, I cut the ball off the end and I re-drilled a hole in here. That hole, I'll press this pin that came out of the original back in. This will need to be shortened off just a little bit more, but you can see how that slides in there really nice now. And it's a lot shorter. So that should do for that. I'll cut this off just a little bit. I'll slide this in, and then I'll press the pin in once this is assembled. And here, I've pushed the pin back in, and we have a shortened drive shaft. We'll try this out for size on here. That looks like it should be a good fit. Even at fully collapsed suspension, it's good, and it won't pull apart. Should be good. We'll put a little Loctite on those and tighten them down. So putting the bed on is our next step. I've actually installed the battery and run this thing around the yard a little bit already. But we're going to have to trim out a bit right up in this area. So I'm just going to set this on here about where it goes and do a little eyeballing, and then we'll trim it out. It looks like quite a large area is going to have to come out of there. So we'll get out the Dremel and cut it out. So here's how it's sitting all ready to run. You can see how much I had to carve out of the belly there. But would you look at that, it's still a mess in here. But we got a little bit accomplished today. The 370 motor is a little down on power compared to my expectations. To those of you who made it all the way to the end of this video, you've got an incredible attention span because this went everywhere. Apologies for the poor video and audio in the middle there. I believe that's been resolved. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. As always, play nice.